poor single mom walked him out of a bad blind date, not knowing he was a lonely CEO falling for her. Before we continue, please tell us where in the world are you watching from? We love seeing how far our stories travel. Are you serious right now? The woman's voice at the corner table was sharp enough to slice through the soft music playing in the restaurant. Heads turned as a glass clinked against the table, her tone filled with disgust. You didn't even bring your own car? Wow, this was a waste of time. Grace Miller froze for a second as she wiped down a nearby table. She wasn't supposed to eavesdrop, but when someone's humiliation spilled loud enough for the whole restaurant to hear, you couldn't help but notice. She turned her head slightly and saw the man sitting opposite that rude woman. He wasn't saying much, just quietly nodding, his expression unreadable. He looked like he didn't belong there, like he'd rather be anywhere else. Grace had seen a lot during her late-night shifts at the Maple Diner, but this was different. The man's calm was almost heartbreaking, like someone who'd learned to swallow pain instead of showing it. Then suddenly the woman stood up, rolled her eyes dramatically and stormed out, leaving him sitting there in awkward silence. People whispered. Someone laughed. Before she even realized it, Grace walked over, grabbed a fresh napkin, and placed it on his table. "Rough night, huh?" she said softly, her voice carrying the kind of warmth only people who've been through tough times can give. The man lifted his eyes, calm gray with a hint of surprise, and smiled faintly. "Guess that's one way to put it." "Don't worry," she said with a grin, trying to lighten the moment. "She's not worth your steak." That made him laugh, a quiet, genuine sound that seemed like it hadn't escaped him in a long time. "Thanks," he said. "I owe you one." Grace shrugged. "You can pay me back by finishing your food." "My boss hates wasted meals." He chuckled again, and for the first time that night, the heaviness in his shoulders seemed to lift just a little. He didn't look like one of those polished city guys who expected the world to kneel for them. There was something different, grounded, almost lonely. After he left, Grace went back to cleaning, shaking her head with a small smile. She didn't even know his name. To her, he was just another kind soul who'd gotten caught up with the wrong kind of person. But that man, Nathan Hayes, sat in his car outside for a long while after leaving. He couldn't stop thinking about the waitress with the gentle voice who stepped in when no one else did. He had met countless people who wanted something from him. Money, status, connections. But tonight, someone had simply been kind, and that small act of humanity hit him harder than he expected. As the city lights shimmered against his windshield, Nathan whispered to himself, "Who are you, Grace Miller?" He didn't know it yet, but that question was about to change both of their lives forever. The next evening, Grace was halfway through her shift at the Maple Diner, balancing 2 trays and humming softly under her breath when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Excuse me, any chance you remember me from last night?" She turned around, almost dropping her tray, and there he was. The same guy from the night before, standing in his gray hoodie and jeans, looking slightly out of place but smiling like he meant it. "Well, well," she teased, crossing her arms. "Back for another disaster date?" Nathan laughed, the sound low and warm. "Nope, just back for the world's best coffee. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But truth is, I was hoping to see you again." Grace blinked, not sure whether to blush or roll her eyes. "Smooth line, mister. You say that to all the waitresses who save your pride from meltdown?" He shook his head. "No, just the ones who remind me what kindness looks like." Something in his tone made her pause. It wasn't flirty, not exactly, more like genuine appreciation. She smiled a little, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "Well, in that case, you'd better sit. I'll bring you that coffee over the next hour." Nathan stayed, longer than most customers ever did. They talked about small things at first, how the diner coffee wasn't as terrible as people claimed, how city life felt lonelier than anyone admitted, and how sometimes the quietest people had the loudest stories. Grace didn't know who he was. She didn't care either. To her, he was just Nathan, a decent guy who asked about her daughter Emma, laughed at her dry jokes, and didn't look at her like she was broken for being a single mom working double shifts. Before leaving, he pulled out a napkin and scribbled something on it. "For next time, Maury," he said, sliding it across the counter. Grace looked down. It was a number. His number. Next time? She asked, half smiling. Yeah, he said with a wink. You can call it whatever you want. A coffee debt, a thank you, or maybe a start. He walked out before she could say anything else. Grace stood there, holding that napkin like it was something more than just paper. Later that night, when she tucked Emma into bed, the little girl asked, "Mommy, why are you smiling?" Grace laughed softly, kissing her forehead. No reason, baby. Just had a good day at work. But deep down, she knew it wasn't just a good day. It was the first day in a long, long time that she felt seen. What Grace didn't know was that Nathan wasn't just a man with a kind heart. He was the CEO of Hayes Tech, a man whose name carried weight in every boardroom in the city. But for once, he didn't want to be that guy. He just wanted to be Nathan. The man who met a woman who didn't care about titles, money, or fame. And as he drove home that night, watching the city fade behind him, he knew one thing for sure. He was going back to the Maple Diner again. Not for the coffee, but for the woman who'd unknowingly reminded him what home could feel like. The following week, the morning rush at the Maple Diner was chaos. Clinking plates, impatient regulars, and the smell of burnt toast hanging in the air. Grace was juggling 3 tables when she heard that same voice again. Low, calm, and familiar. Hey, Grace, you look like you're fighting a breakfast war out here. She turned and there was Nathan again, dressed sharper this time, but still with that same unbothered charm, sleeves rolled up, smile easy. You keep showing up like this, people might think you actually like diner food, she teased, sliding him a menu. Maybe I do, he said, leaning on the counter. Or maybe I just like the company. Grace tried to play it cool, but the warmth in his eyes made her chest tighten. You talk like a man who's got secrets, Nathan chuckled. Maybe I do. Maybe you'll find out someday that someday came faster than either of them expected. Later that afternoon, as Grace took her lunch break behind the diner, she found Emma sitting on the back steps with her crayons scattered. Hey, kiddo, she said, crouching down. What you drawing? Before Emma could answer, a voice called from behind. Mind if I join the art club? Grace turned. Nathan was standing there, holding 2 sodas and a small paper bag. Figured an artist and her mom might need a snack. Emma's eyes lit up. Mommy, he brought chips. Grace laughed. You're spoiling her. Nathan shrugged. Can't help it. She's got good taste. He sat beside them, easy as if he'd belonged there all along. For a while, the 3 of them just talked. About silly things, favorite movies, and how Emma thought dinosaurs might still be hiding underground. Nathan listened like every word mattered, not once checking his phone. When it was time to go, Emma surprised him by handing him her drawing, a stick figure family holding hands. You can keep it, she said shyly. Nathan looked at the drawing, his voice soft. Thank you, sweetheart. I'll treasure it. Grace's heart squeezed as she watched him walk away, the paper clutched in his hand like it was made of gold. That night, Nathan sat in his penthouse office, city lights glittering behind him. He should have been thinking about the new merger or the board meeting in the morning, but all he could think about was a tired waitress and her little girl with a smile that could outshine every light in the skyline. He looked down at the crayon drawing lying on his desk, messy, colorful, full of warmth, and smiled to himself. She has no idea, he murmured. No idea that the man who brought her sodas and chips was worth more than most small towns. No idea that her laughter had somehow become the one thing he looked forward to. For years, Nathan Hayes had built an empire. He'd mastered numbers, strategies, and people, but never once had he felt seen, until a single mom with tired eyes and a brave little girl reminded him what it meant to feel human again. And by the time he went to bed that night, Nathan had already made up his mind. Tomorrow he wasn't showing up as a CEO. He was showing up as a man who wanted to know more about the woman who'd unknowingly stolen his heart. The next morning, Grace was running late again. Same diner, same chaos, same overfilled coffee pots. But when she turned the corner, she froze. Nathan was already there, sitting at her favorite booth by the window. Only this time, something was different. His usual casual look was gone. Instead, he wore a tailored navy suit, the kind of thing that screamed money, power, and confidence. Morning, Grace, he said, his tone easy, but his presence It felt different now, bigger. Hope I didn't steal your booth. Grace blinked, half laughing, half nervous. Guess you clean up nice. Didn't realize you had a job interview. Nathan chuckled, stirring his coffee. Something like that. The rest of the morning flew by, but she couldn't shake that feeling, like she was missing something big. Why would a man who dressed like that keep coming to a rundown diner? Why did he always talk to her like she was someone worth knowing? That night, the answer found her. Grace was locking up the diner when she saw a sleek black car parked outside. The door opened, and out stepped Nathan. But before she could even ask what he was doing there, a chauffeur appeared beside him. A chauffeur. Her jaw dropped. Wait, what the... Nathan, what's going on? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. I was hoping I could tell you this my own way, but yeah, I owe you the truth. She folded her arms, heart pounding. The truth about what? He took a step closer, his voice softer now. My name's Nathan Hayes. I'm the CEO of Hayes & Company. Grace blinked. Hayes & Company? As in the billion-dollar Hayes & Company? He nodded. That one. For a second, the world tilted. The man who'd helped her wipe spilled coffee off a table, who'd sat cross-legged eating chips with her daughter. That man was a millionaire CEO. Why didn't you just say that from the start? She asked, her voice breaking a little. Because I didn't want you to see the title before you saw the person, he said quietly. You looked at me like a man, not a paycheck. Do you know how rare that is? Grace exhaled shakily. You let me think you were just some regular guy. I am a regular guy, he said, smiling faintly. Money doesn't make me more. It just hides who I really am. The tension between them softened. She didn't know whether to yell at him or laugh, but instead she whispered, You're something else, Nathan Hayes. He grinned. I'll take that as a compliment. Before she could respond, the diner lights flickered off. They both laughed quietly in the dim glow of the streetlights. Can I walk you home? He asked. Grace hesitated, but only for a moment. Yeah, she said, smiling. You can. And as they walked side by side through the quiet streets, the distance between billionaire and single mom didn't seem so big anymore. It felt like two hearts finally walking towards something real. Grace, I'm not gonna lie. I didn't plan for any of this, Nathan said one late afternoon, standing outside the diner after closing. His car was parked nearby again, but he wasn't the confident CEO this time. He looked like the same man who'd once helped her pick up spilled sugar packets from the floor. The same man who'd laughed with her daughter like it was the most natural thing in the world. Grace crossed her arms, heart pounding harder than she wanted to admit. You mean falling for a single mom with a leaky roof and a kid who eats pancakes for dinner? She asked, half teasing, half terrified of the answer. He smiled, that soft, genuine kind of smile that made her chest tighten. Exactly that. She wanted to fight it, to remind herself that he came from a world of private jets and boardrooms, while hers was held together with coffee stains and overdue bills. But every time she looked into his eyes, all those reasons faded into something smaller than the moment between them. Then came the knock on her door a week later. Grace opened it to find Nathan standing there, drenched from the rain, holding something behind his back. You're insane, she said, laughing as thunder cracked in the distance. Probably, he said, revealing a half-crumpled takeout bag. But I brought your favorite. Extra fries, no pickles. Her laughter melted into something softer. She stepped aside, letting him in. The lights flickered as they sat down at her tiny table, their knees brushing under the wood. He watched her daughter coloring in the corner and smiled quietly. Grace, he said finally, voice low. You know, when I first met you, I thought I was just stopping in for coffee. I didn't expect my whole life to shift over a spilled mug and a sarcastic waitress who told me I couldn't sit in her section. She looked up, smiling. You deserved that. He chuckled. Yeah, I did. But you made me realize something. All this time I thought happiness came from success, from numbers, deals, headlines. Turns out it's this. You, her. A home that smells like pancakes and crayons. Her throat tightened. You don't mean that. He leaned closer. I've never meant anything more. Silence filled the room, warm and fragile. Then her daughter ran up, holding out her latest drawing, the three of them holding hands under a crooked heart. Look, Mommy, it's us. Grace froze. Nathan took the paper gently, smiling at the drawing like it was the most valuable thing he'd ever owned. You know, he said softly, she's a better artist than half the people in my company. Grace laughed through her tears. She gets it from her mom. Nathan looked at her then, really looked, and said, no, she gets it from the woman who gave us both a reason to believe again. Before Grace could respond, he stood and reached into his pocket. Not for a ring, not yet, but for a tiny key. He placed it in her palm. What's this? She asked. He smiled. To a place across town. It's got a bigger kitchen, a yard, and enough space for dreams that deserve to grow. It's not a gift, Grace. It's a promise that I'm not going anywhere. Her breath caught. Nathan. He shook his head gently. Don't say anything now. Just think about it. But if you ever decide to take that step, I'll be right there waiting, with extra fries and no pickles. Grace laughed, the kind of laugh that sounded like hope. And in that quiet little diner, between thunder outside and a heart that finally stopped running, she realized something. Love doesn't always arrive dressed in perfection. Sometimes it walks in soaked from the rain, holding takeout, and changes everything forever. If this journey touched your heart, make sure to subscribe the channel so you never miss another story that stirs the soul. And before you leave, click on one of the videos on your screen, because every story we share holds another moment that might change the way you see love, family, and second chances.